Hi, my name is Kiri Bolles. I usually go by Kiri. I am a watercolor artist. And I live in Tacoma, Washington right now, but I'm from Southern Oregon and moved up here for university. I went to the University of Puget Sound. When I was about 12, I was jumping rope one day and I bent over and I felt like something really bad happened in my back. And ever since then, I have had chronic back pain. It's pretty constant, every day, every moment kind of thing. Obviously, it was challenging to go to school and everything with a chronic condition. And so I started making kind of self-portraits that at the time I didn't really realize were about my chronic condition, but eventually kind of transformed into being like very clearly about that. In college, I kind of started having a little bit of a harder time just keeping up with classes and not being absent too much. Sometimes my pain would be really bad. And so I was trying to get a support group started at the university, and it was taking a really long time and not working. So eventually I ended up helping start one and met a lot of other students that had chronic conditions. Through that, I sort of started figuring out that I wanted to do portraits of other people also. So for my thesis at the university, I did a series of portraits of some of the people in the group who had chronic conditions. Yeah, since graduating, I kept the support group going outside of the university for a little while. I've got kind of a collection of portraits now of various different conditions. People call it illustrative a little bit, and then also I think it's kind of like surrealism. Mostly my work is very realistic, then I have these kind of surrealistic aspects of bringing in different things to kind of articulate the symptoms that people are experiencing. I don't want to come up with the way that we're visually articulating the symptoms. I'm trying to kind of guide them through a series of questions where I'm learning some about their history with the condition and kind of like what their primary symptoms are. And then I get a little bit more abstract, and so I ask like, oh, are they hot or cold, wet or dry, stuff like that. And then I spend a little while with them trying to just like figure out what they feel like would be kind of an accurate representation if we were to do something surrealistic to represent like visually what their condition is. And then I actually do video interviews with the people that I'm working with. You know, they don't necessarily have a lot of voice with just the piece, so I want there to be these like videos where they can actually tell their story, have a little bit of like agency in their own story. Developing a chronic condition is such a grief process. You're losing this part of yourself that you had maybe in the past that's may never come back. You may never get that old self back. So it's such a difficult emotional thing as well as physical for a lot of people. So what ultimately I want with the support group and then with also doing these portraits is I want there to be some catharsis with it. I found that doing self-portraits was so helpful for me, especially with an invisible chronic condition. I don't have the visual things. People are always like, oh, you look healthy, you know, you're in your 20s, you should be like at your peak. But there's this hidden thing that I'm dealing with. So being able to kind of see it on paper and visually articulate it, and then actually maybe I have some pieces where I'm like pulling things out, it's really, really helpful for me. It just feels like I'm getting a little bit of control back. My hope with doing portraits of other people is that they're feeling that a little bit. And then the feedback that I'm getting of the interview process, which I'm stoked about, is that people just unfortunately aren't given a space to kind of talk about their conditions frequently. So a lot of them have never been asked questions as in depth as kind of what I'm trying to pull out during the interview process. That's just designated time for them to be able to actually share their experience, talk about what it's like. And I think that hopefully that can be really helpful for people as well. When I'm creating a piece, I start out with what I call my blueprint, which you can see in the back here. This is a different paintings blueprint, which is just kind of a sketch of like the outline that I'm gonna do. And I really like own that sketch so that it can be what the finished lines are going to be on the watercolor paper, because I don't want there to be all these like erased lines on the watercolor paper. Usually what I'm going to do is start out with kind of this like underpainting and have the primary colors, so I'll do blue, yellow, and red, just to bring out all those undertones that we have in our skin. Then over that I'll do like the background and whatever the clothes are and that sort of thing, and then move into actually like defining skin tone, and then whatever the kind of addition is that's going to be representing the symptoms. My hopes with this project, I don't foresee stopping. I kind of want to just spend the rest of my artistic career doing this. There are so many different conditions and so many different people that are dealing with them, and I feel like there's like nuances to every person's experience that are really valuable to talk about. Hopefully it's helping the people that I'm doing the portraits of, but I also want there to be, when the public are viewing the portraits, some education around whatever the condition is, if it's diagnosed, and then also hopefully some level of empathy that people are able to kind of get out of being able to see just a visual articulation of what other people are going through dealing with their chronic conditions. And then kind of like a third layer, that if people see the portraits that are dealing with chronic conditions, that they feel like they've been kind of seen, and like the portraits are sort of representing their demographic a little bit in that way. My art is up at Bluebeard Coffee Roasters right now. It'll be up there for a little bit longer, and then I've got a piece in an upcoming show at Alma Mater. I'm kind of building my portfolio as much as I can right now, hoping to get some exhibit down the line where I'm able to bring in those elements of like the portraits, the video, and then I try to do like a little write-up about like what is fibromyalgia, if that's what the person's dealing with, so that we kind of have those three things that we're touching on. And yeah, like I said, I want to continue doing it. I want to work with as many people as I can, and in order to make income, might have to do commissions at some point, but I just started a GoFundMe so that I'm hopefully able to, for a little longer, work with people who might not be able to afford commissioning a piece from me. I've got some college students, so sort of different people that don't necessarily have that level of income.